the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Tonight, turn down the noise of the day and focus on the rest with AGZ, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. New from AG1. AGZ supports your body's natural sleep cycle with clinically studied key herbs, adaptogens, and minerals in amounts supported by research. And no melatonin, helping you wake feeling rested. Wind down, rest up with AGZ. Learn more at drinkagz.com.
Welcome to Horror Bytes on Safe Room, the show where we discuss the smaller scares and teenier terrors available to play on your gaming devices. Every week we pick 1 or 2 bite-sized horror games and have a suitably chat about them. I'm Neil Bolt, and ignoring the last-minute meeting call with me this week is, as ever, my co-host Jay Krieger. How are you doing, Jay?
Just when I thought I was out, these damn side-scrollers keep pulling me back in.
Yes. But before we get into that, of course, if you like the sound of what we played this week or any week, the show notes will always include a link to the game we've discussed. And as ever, if you do enjoy those games, you can consider supporting the developers by donating, wishlisting their future projects, or just simply sharing the word around, because it all helps to build the next generation of horror game developers. And for this week's pick, we are in that most relatable of us, trying to get out of work. Jay, please tell us all about Primary Exit.
So Primary Exit is a single location side-scrolling horror puzzler from developer, writer, and artist Wying Foxy, and it is scored by composer, I believe it's pronounced None. And this is in which an office worker experiences everybody that's worked in office's worst nightmare, that being you've fallen asleep at your desk and your coworkers have basically abandoned you. And unlike what most people have probably experienced, this particular office worker finds himself locked in their building's lobby. They're unable to exit. And so thankfully they have access, or seemingly thankfully, they have access to this kind of like Black Mirror-esque tech in the lobby, which is like a help terminal of sorts. And that's supposed to allow them to navigate between various buildings in the office. But what it really does is it lets them navigate between different realities that are tied to this building's lobby. So basically with each reality shift, it not only changes like the color palette of the floors to help organize that, but that in fact like reveals new items or clues to uncover the solution to this supernatural kind of office nightmare. I think first and foremost, we're very much suckers for really great pixel art. And here, this is a really strong example of that, I think. It's a world that is like quite simple, but I think that they do a good job of playing around with that color palette. But at the same time, just like making it a space that I don't necessarily know I'd go as far to say like interesting, but they're able to make it a very simple setting that's like pretty evocative. I think throwing out like Argento lighting is not out of the question for some of those environments, specifically like when you're on the blue floor or the blue reality and you've got these Argento like reds bleeding through some of the windows, and like it creates this very sort of moody atmosphere, which I think that the lighting in this does a lot of the heavy lifting in that regard. Like in terms of the actual horror aspect to it, some of those aspects are actually kind of hard to find because of the fact that you have to plan, or you have to, I suppose, make certain decisions at the right moments. Otherwise you could completely miss them. And that is speaking to maybe some of the deeper secrets that are in this game, because there's multiple endings based upon the player's actions. And that's not a criticism, because I think the lighting, like I was saying, and the color palette does a lot of the heavy lifting in making it just like an environment that is not the typical kind of like horror setting where it's like, oh, there's just like blood strewn on the wall or there's bodies here or there. It's like, no, it's a creepy, empty lobby, unless you nail the certain like requirements to open up one other storyline that has a little bit more of a sinister edge to it, if you will. But yeah, it's quite an atmospheric sort of like approach to what is a very simplistic setting on paper. But I think also, like I mentioned, the composer here, None Sound, that also does a really great job for this like unnerving kind of corporate tech setting, which again, I've mentioned Black Mirror again. That was the thing that I thought about a lot with this in terms of just like that setup, the blending of genre, but also like this notion that technology that's here to help us in actuality is like causing this kind of like living nightmare, which I think is quite fitting for an experience such as this. The mechanics themselves are like pretty simple. Like it feels like it has that sort of like 90s RPG approach to mechanics where you can go into your inventory, you can combine certain items, and then, you know, you get this solution to these various environmental or like person-based puzzles that you get, which there aren't a terrible amount of them. But at the same time, like it's a short and sweet experience that I think kind of capitalizes on its world and puzzles that are reflective of the world itself, or the sort of like blending of realities, if you will. And yeah, I appreciated that it wasn't too heavy handed. Like wasn't the type of thing where we have this office tech horror game and then, you know, we're dealing with like, I don't know, technology monsters or something like that, or the typical kind of like genre trappings here. It's more about, you know, creating an atmosphere that you want to get out of because of the fact it's terrifying because you might not leave. It's not so much like, oh, you're trapped in here with the monster or what have you. But how did you find Primary Exit?
Yeah, I mean, RPG Maker obviously is the engine used for this one as well, which is something that always fascinates me when anyone does a game outside of, you know, an RPG with it, because, you know, when you've seen enough of those games, you get a sense of, when you see it, you're like, this looks quite RPG Maker, and that's fine. Yeah. But it's how someone can sort of take that and turn it into something else in a positive manner. Like, that's the thing that struck me with this straight away, was I can clearly see, yes, that it's an RPG Maker game, but I really like how they've stripped back a lot of that to make this, you know, very simple, you know, very bold design, you know, very, as you said, the puzzle and the movement structure, everything is very bare bones, you know, which, you know, it's a summer jam game, you know, so it's one of those that, you know, it's made to be 15 to 30 minutes. It's absolutely going to have simplification, but that's one of those things we've been talking about before, where, you know, when you see developers like claw back the resources they have and make a different stripped down version of something, and that really is kind of the case here, you know. And even though it's not to the degree that you've got in some other sort of genres and styles, I do think that it suits the RPG Maker model quite well, because there's a lot of visual novel sort of elements that come from that, and you know, some of the text talk and stuff here is that. I mean, that color palette and simple sort of line drawing for everything is really workable. It just does a fantastic job of like setting the mood, you know, just having shadow at the top, the hues of greens and blues and reds. Every time you sort of look outside those windows or the lobby doors, and then you just get that glow of red. It's just, it just evokes a certain atmosphere and a certain style of something that, as you said, Argento is a great reference point. But there's lots of sort of 80s things that come to mind. Well, you just have that very strong sort of color palette and tones that don't feel quite. Actually, thinking of it like Powell and Pressburger, Michael Powell, especially, you know, those sort of really, you know, bright, vivid sort of colors that don't feel quite real but work. And especially when you use like realistic settings, so like an office, it's something that works quite well. But obviously in a very different sort of genre, but this one, yeah, as a game, it's absolutely fine. Does the job. Story's got some interesting sort of stuff behind it. You know, I think there's something to be said, as you said, about using an office as the sort of source of horror in this way, where it's not the usual thing, because it'd be very tempting to, with this one. And there'd be so many ways you could do that. But I think the paths it does go down are far more interesting. And sure, if you're going expecting, say, a bit more slasher-led or whatever, it's not going to satisfy you in quite the same way. But I think it's got enough mood and ambience to just get away with it, I think, and be a more sort of interesting experience than it could have been if it had gone down that. So yeah, I quite liked it.
Turns out an office setting doesn't need a monster. It's just terrifying enough if you can't leave.
Yeah, I mean, there's always other people. Yeah, but yeah, that is all we have for this week. So thank you again, Jay, for talking about these short horror games with me. And of course, if you, the listener, have a short game, a demo, a game jam entry, or proof of concept that you think we should be highlighting, you can email us at saferoompod@gmail.com. And Jay will tell you another place to go.
And you can find us on Blue Sky at SaferoomPod for show updates.
There you go. We will be back with more small-scale horror next week.
That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance redefined.
Your sausage McMuffin with egg didn't change. Your receipt did. The sausage McMuffin with egg extra value meal includes a hash brown and a small coffee for just $5. Only at McDonald's for a limited time.
Prices and participation may vary.